Hey guys, I just want to give my overall thoughts on every episode of The Cape so far. Seeing that the actual show is coming a little bit later than a lot later than anticipated, so I figured this is going to be kind of a TV debrief sort of situation. And if you like this, let me know. If you don't, and you like the actual scripted video later, feel free to let me know. So, first let's start off with the show that is known as The Cape. Episode 1 is the pilot. It's here that we get the origin story of Vince Faraday as The Cape. And we see the setup for the entire show, which basically means introducing Chess as the main villain. His alter ego is Peter Fleming, who runs this private police force that I don't know why they would be approved, but hey, whatever. Who plays this private police force, and we also see the setup of some other characters. We see the kind mentor and his carnival of crime, because that's what they're actually called, played by Keith David. His name is Maximiliani. And we also see the introduction of Orwell, who is, if you don't get the 1983 reference, yeah, that's exactly what you kind of think. That is played by Summer Glau, but she keeps her face obviously under wraps, speaks very cryptically and all that. And we also see a couple of recurring characters, that being Vince's family, Dana, his wife, and Trip, his son. I have a lot to say about that name, god damn it. But you also have some of the carnival of crime. You have Rollo, who is the token little person. Although he actually is like one of my favorite characters in this show. And you also see a couple of other ones that don't really get named out. You see one of the recurring henchmen, so to speak, of Peter, being, I think, Dominic Raoul is his name. He just goes by Scales, which, yeah, he's just very scaly. Looks a lot like Pitbull, now that I think about it. Not a Pitbull, like the performing artist. I don't really want to call him a singer or a rapper. I just call him a performing artist, Pitbull. Especially when he has the glasses on and his getup. So the first episode really just sets all this up. The way that it works is Fleming, we get the introduction of Chess, but Fleming then, basically takes his mask, puts it on Vince, and that's how people get to know that, or get to think that Vince is Chess, and that Chess is dead, when in reality, he managed to escape, and then falls into this carnival of crime. Max gives... I'm stumbling all here. Max gives Vince the titular cape, which also exists in this TV show as a comic book that he reads to his son. So it's all going to be taking place one day, I swear. But you see Max give Vince the cape, suits up, goes through the montage, trains himself to be this master criminal, and you see that Scales is smuggling in this highly explosive chemical known as L9. in Dolls, there's actually one really interesting. There's one potty joke in that they are shipping in toys that are, um, it's like Patty Pee Time or something like that, where it's dolls that are for toilet training. Honestly, I've seen those before. That's not the least of my concerns at this point. But hey, it's whatever. I'm not mad about it. But, Vince finds out. That's how he gets framed. We find out that his old partner, Marty, is actually working with Chess as a henchman. And Scales is also trying to then. I am mumbling through all this because these are just my flat out thoughts. Overall, I liked it. You have a final scene where you think Max is dead, but he's not. They're all on a ship, and we actually get the first fight scene between Chess and the Cape. I have problems with this episode, and some of the problems in this episode do permeate throughout the rest of the series. But overall, it's not terrible. It does have a buttload of tonal changes throughout here. It will go from silly to dark to silly to dark. It is a tonal clash, and I hate it like that, but sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. As a pilot of a TV show, it does set everything up pretty nicely, especially since this is just a 1 hour pilot. It's not something that's extended. You see the character, you see a supporting cast, you see the villain, you see the villain supporting cast. You see how different plot lines can go. So overall, I really liked this episode as a pilot. If they could only tweak a few things, but like I said, it's going to be permeating throughout the entire series. So if you can get through the rambling first 5 minutes, that's pretty much how this show is going to go. So yeah, that was the pilot of The Cape. Now, onward! This is actually getting slightly better, I would say. Because in this episode, we see that Peter is not only trying to get a hold of the police, but also Peter's not only trying to get a hold of the police department, but also in the jail system. And one person is standing in his way. This, politician type, I guess. So, in order to get him out of the picture, Peter Fleming hires an assassin. And it's basically just the Cape trying to save this secretary of the Bureau of Jails and trying to stop Kane, the assassin. I really like this episode, and this episode, as well as one other, is the only 2 episodes that are directed by the same person. And it's here that we actually get a pretty good introduction to this League of Assassins, which I really would have liked to see expanded upon. They call themselves Talon. Not Talon. Shit. Been playing a little too much Overwatch. They call themselves Tarot, formed after tarot cards. And Kane has a tattoo of the Tower on his arm, so you get to see that Tarot is, this group of assassins that Peter Fleming has hired to take care of this guy, but Cape obviously goes in, saves the day, and all that. In the Dana subplot, we see that she has, which, given a show like this, just telling you, sometimes Dana barely gets any scenes. But, yeah, in her subplot, she goes in and tries to get another job since she's not employed anymore. Going at first under her maiden name, but going back to Faraday whenever she goes in to try to get an attorney job as I believe, a public defender. So she goes in, she gets the job. We see Marty for a scene come in and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, Vince is still chess. He's not anything else, and I'm obviously not a bad guy." We see Trev trying to, going up to the balcony, going up on the rooftop, to try to see the cape again, which probably doesn't happen. In this episode, I think he's gotta be in like the first or second grade, but still, I think this gets stupid. And also, in an episode that gives the importance of names, they still have the gravity to name their kid Trip. And it's here that we actually do get a little bit of a better sense. You do have some better fight scenes. You see more of some training going on. A big thing with Vince in this episode is he has to try to be this vigilante without actually having the cape itself, which I kind of understand, I kind of see. But he ends up doing some stupid shit. There's actually one training montage where he tries to go in and prepare himself for battling Kane. And of course, being an expert in poison, he tries to give himself poison tolerance by taking small doses of other poisons, which I find pretty cool. He also has this machine, just like how you would throw tennis balls to practice with. He does this with knives. So he takes this machine, sets it in front of him, and just stands there trying to dodge knives. You couldn't start with tennis balls first? Anyway, that is... Overall, I find this better than the pilot, because the tone... they actually kind of figure out what type of tone they're going for. The silliness and the jokes in it really do die down a bit, so you see that this is much more of a serious type of show. Although there are still a couple of either good or sometimes cringy jokes in there. And some logic leaps are way outside the realm of reality. But overall, I find this to be a better episode than pilot. So, high hopes for the rest of the season. Episode 3 is, if I remember correctly when I first started watching this, it's actually my favorite episode. So, this deals with a Russian escape artist known as Gregor the Great, who was actually Max's protege in becoming the next Kozmo, which were inheritors of this unnatural cape. So whenever Gregor was going through, he's in bad news because he was a killer and all that kind of stuff. So this is basically just Gregor trying to get the cape back so that he can do a bunch of nasty shit, because he's not reformed in the slightest. It's also here that we get some not so subtle foreshadowing with Orwell, because it is hinted at, and by hinted at I mean it is not subtle whatsoever, that Orwell is actually Peter Fleming's daughter. And I don't know why, it doesn't show any motivations, it just, oh hey, Peter Fleming is just looking intensely for his daughter. Meanwhile, at the same time, he's also hunting for Orwell, but wants to take him out. Yeah, like I said, not subtle whatsoever. But as the episode goes on, it plays on the theme of, either Vince wears the cape or the cape influences him with power and all that kind of stuff. Honestly, this is a really good episode. I mean, some of the fight scenes could use a little bit of work, but As for the comedic elements are really toned down, it has many different plots in it, but they all kind of weave around each other. There's a plot with Dana where she is investigating where she's looking through a bunch of these files that she gets, and she finds out that there were witnesses to the night that Vince got framed, and they said, oh yeah, there are a ton of witnesses. But she brings it up to Marty, who is Peter Fleming's right hand, and they get all rounded up. So it does make it a lot interesting to see how, she's actually being progressive. It's actually tying in with the plot. Trip is probably the weakest of all the subplots. This has him moving to a different school, which there's just one scene in it that's really terrible, that I had so many problems with. But basically he's moving, and now, because people are making fun of him because he is portrayed as Chess's son, the son of Chess, I think they call him, he's fighting in school, and they're trying to go through and help him out. But overall, it does show that Gregor is actually kind of compelling. The motivations behind him are super weak. He's the weakest character, but at the same time, he does have the awe of, oh hey, he has, he is a master escape artist. You actually do see his motivations for wanting to get the cape and why he goes after Vince. Because he wants to be this thief, this murderer, this psychopath, whatever. And honestly, they do actually set him up to kind of be a recurring villain, that he could eventually come back, because he's an escape artist. There's no way you can really put him down, so yeah, they do a really good job with that, which I applaud them for. Yeah, the theme of it is mostly about identity. They try to investigate Orwell's backstory, which they are not even hiding at the very end. So, all in all, this is a better episode, the best so far, certainly, and like I said, based off of my understanding, this is my favorite one of the 10-episode series. So I'll be quite interested to see them go on from here. But if anyone were to ask me to show them what the cape was all about, I would actually show them this episode. Because while the pilot sets a lot of stuff up, and you don't actually physically see Chess, you do get a sense of what the show's about, how the supporting cast works off of each other, and you actually get to see people at this carnival. The carnival does actually run, so it's actually quite interesting. So we will see how this goes. Alright, catch you next episode. So episode 4 is essentially just a train job. It focuses back on Scales, which I really like. I think this episode is called Scales. I really don't remember. But in any case, this focuses on Scales kind of remembering that learning maybe, that Peter Fleming is Chess, and basically now they're starting to go at odds with each other. So this all happens on a Heroes and Villains dress-up, I think, event on a train, where Peter Fleming's there, Mayor's there, and this is where everything kind of takes place. Because you have the Carnival of Crime wanting to basically rob the train. You have Vince trying to both stop the carnival, as well as make sure Scales outs Peter Fleming as Chess. And you've got Peter Fleming going there schmoozing and trying to make a good public appearance. Orville is helping Vince out by kind of just being his eyes and ears and making a couple of dumb moves along the way. And I'll get to Dana and Tripp's subplot in a second. But overall, this is a good episode if it weren't for the fact that you can tell it's budget. There are so many times where the train is shown on the outside. You would guess it'd be a night sky, but it looks so much like a soundstage. It doesn't look like it's moving at all. It looks absolutely horrific. Now, when they're inside the train, it makes sense. When they're outside, it doesn't. But the climax has it to where Scales and the Carnival are outside, but the train is deemed a runaway. So the Cape and Peter have to actually work together to stop the train. Basically, the Cape lowers Peter down, Peter cuts the brake line, stops the train. They're both kind of deemed a hero at this point, which honestly is pretty good, given the fact that Peter is here working to portray himself better in the eyes of the public, which he does so by saving the train, and the Cape is there now as an established hero and, you know, helping Peter out by stopping the train. It's actually a really, really nice climax, and I really like it. Meanwhile, I'm trying to avoid going to this because it's so stupid. However, this all takes place in one day because it's Tripp's 10th birthday. And, oh boy, it's bad. Because we have Tripp going to get Stranger Danger. Tripp has stranger danger on the mind because his dad told him to do something like that on his birthday. And Dana is in the middle of traffic. She's trying to get a cake to her son, you know, get the present, trying to go, trying to get home to get everything sorted out. Her boss, Travis, who again is creepy as fuck in this. They're going to go after, case orders while also having Tripp a birthday party. It's weird. Anyway, so, Travis apparently is already there, so goes in, but of course Tripp won't let him in, so he has to sit outside and work on something while he's outside their apartment, and Dana's in traffic, so he can't get home. And of course, her phone battery has to die, because I think even in 2001 whenever this show came out, they had phone chargers, or at least a phone charger at work. So stupid and contrived. But no, they get home and everything's good. Except, oh no, the ice cream cake is now melted. Her car seat is fucking ruined at this point. I don't give a shit how tightly sealed that cake case is. Her car seat is ruined. But overall, it's not as good as Kozmo, but it's not bad. I love Scales. Scales is one of my favorite characters in this show because he has kind of a British accent in this, but man, he is charismatic. Like, it's not boring when Scales is on there. Like, even whenever he's trying to schmooze the mayor, trying to do something that's under the table, he's basically just like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna rob the train then. Fuck you guys. Whenever he notices, which he actually does out Fleming his chest. He says, hey, Peter Fleming his chest. And everyone just laughs at him, which, granted, whenever you see Chess pretty much die and no sign of him since, I think it's pretty clear that, it's pretty clear why people would laugh at that. But all in all, it's actually a pretty good episode. We actually know a little bit more about how Scales works, as well as a tiny bit of his background in this, which is actually really neat. As it stands right now, it's not as good. I would say it's better than episode 2. If the budget didn't show itself. Again, there is pretty much an entire fight scene that takes place on a train, and it's so distracting. The budget just really just shows itself in this, and it's just not. It's just not good. It's just not good the way it looks, especially with some of the special effects. Granted, the previous episode had a weird one where Kozmo had his hand right there, and you can tell like some of the outlines on it, and he was bending his fingers back and everything. It was just a fleeting moment, but it was just there and then gone. It didn't really feel like it was. The special effects looked so much better on that. This shit does not fly. It's not just a quick, okay, maybe a few seconds long. No, this is minutes on end that this happens. And it is just glaring. So, all in all, besides that and a couple of little just odd moments like, oh, Vince is panicked that Max is planning to heist the train. Oh, have you forgot that maybe Max is a criminal who runs something called the Carnival of Crime? They try to hide the fact, saying, well, while you were helping me, I kind of forgot this. Like, yeah, well, that makes you a moron, but overall, I would say it's a really good episode. It's not as good as episode 3, but kind of right up there. So, the next episode is the one that I remember not liking as much. So, I guess I'll see you guys then.
Next one. I'm a suburban.
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, this episode is worse the more I think about it. So, yes, this is the middle part of the season. We have Dice. The plot is almost nonsense. So, let us begin, shall we? The episode literally starts out in a facility where we meet a savant named Tracy. Who works with numbers and probability, but they make her out to say that she can see into the future. And in this little prologue, whenever Peter and her dad, who happens to be the research scientist, because of course he is, she tells him that, oh, Peter is going to kill my dad, but I'm going to kill Peter. So yeah, revenge has come, essentially. And it's not the fact that this setup is weird. It's the fact that, A, Peter is now some sort of Bill Gates-esque guy, because he's trying to make a machine based off of Tracy, who is the girl from before, also called Tracy, and trying to mass market this thing in what looks like to be the scope of 3 or 4 days to put this into mass production. He announces it, demonstrates it, and says that in a year it will be as common as the household toaster. Not only is this a stupid plot thread, but Tracy goes over and over and over to try to assassinate Peter. what does he do? Does he lock her up, say, hey, you need to come with me, or hey, I'm going to hunt you down? No, he flirts with her. Because he is fallen in love. Like some sort of... God, fuck this episode. Like some sort of idiot. Like he is the worst idiot right now. But it's almost creepy too, because by the way things look, he's about as old... Tracy is about as old as Orwell. Because whenever you look into the flashback, Tracy, if I had to guess, looks to be about 21-ish. Actually, I'm going to take a brief pause here. I'm going to be talking more about while I look at something. I want to see how old they actually are, how old he is, to try to compare this. So, let's go ahead. But it's creepy. Because they look about the same age, and we get them basically flirting with each other. He's not taking this seriously whatsoever. But here's the problem with this episode. And it's not like it doesn't have good stuff in it, but it's just so stupid. Because now Vince is out trying to save Peter, because in order to frame Peter's chest, he needs Peter alive. So he needs to save him from Dice, which Peter does not like. Orwell, of course, is being smart in this situation. And overall, it's just plain stupid. Max has nothing to do here, besides making some sort of cryptic, I guess, making some sort of prediction that he knew Vince was going to get the cape whenever he was there. And, you know, the two people that really have the most screen time is the acrobat and the hypnotist, trying to teach him to high wire 41 stories up in 2 days. Yeah, we have one of those sequences here. We also have the side plot with Dana and Tripp, only this side plot has literally 3 scenes and is just, you know, Dana trying to do both jobs, trying to get him to accept her as, I'm a single parent, I'm trying to do both things as much as I can, but honestly, you know, Tripp is having none of that. So of course, there's crying and different things involved. It's sort of a mess, and not in the good way. And we also get flashbacks back in here, because everybody loves flashback scenes. And in this one, we actually see the night that... we actually get 2 flashbacks. The night that Vince went to... the night that Vince was captured. Where it says the last things that he said to his wife Dana, and the last thing that he said to his son. Which, I mean, it's very emotional, and I get that. But, all in all, it is very unnecessary. Okay, back, and yeah, she is only 2 years older than Summer Cloud. I know I had to go back and look at that, but that is so stupid. The fact that you would have something like that. That's just really creepy. And overall, this episode does have a tighter focus, I would say, which is pretty good, except a lot of the choices that they made, especially with Dice, with Peter. Peter is just here an all-out idiot at this point. There's no redeeming factor in him whatsoever. And I hate to say that, but after this episode, this is my least favorite episode, but a lot of people really like it. And I don't understand why. Oh wait, it's got fan service. That actually makes sense now. But all in all, I really wish I could see this. I really wish this was a lot better, but this is certainly a low point in my opinion. Especially coming off of Kozmo and then the last episode, Scales. So, next up is, oh boy, is a doozy. So, I'll see you then.
I'm so